Howdy meet. Welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show. Hey everybody, it's Sen here, and we're live on a Wednesday night at the Meeple Syrup headquarters, which is like nowhere really. It's kind of everywhere. We're global.
The internet.
It's the internet. We're here. We're global. We're everywhere. And we're here today with Kwanchai, Moriya, and we're gonna bring Jesse back into the feed. Just give me like 5 seconds. I gotta scroll over to Jesse and pop him back in. There he is. He's coming. Don't worry. 3, 2, 1. There he is. Wham!
I can't see there's no little numbers or anything going on at the top of the corner. Continue. I can't tell if anyone else seeing that.
Oh no, I can. Yeah, I can see them now.
As long as somebody can.
Well, there they are. They're there. They're people. And we're here with Kwanchai. Good to see you, buddy. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks
I
for
hear
having
you
me.
were sick.
I was sick last week, so I sound a little raspy, but I'm good. I'm all here.
You sound kind of normal.
It's the radio voice.
It's that radio voice. It's deeper now. That's better.
Okay. So you practiced. I hear. Okay. And where were you last week? You were up in the Pacific Northwest?
I was in Seattle and Vancouver just for a short bit, just for fun, basically.
Yeah. You didn't no business or some business?
Had a meeting or two. Yeah.
That's good. Meetings are good. I like those. That's good. So everything's been going well with you, sir?
Going great. Yep.
Yeah. And what are you working on currently?
In the Pacific Northwest?
I am working on a bunch of stuff. I have about 6 or 7 projects ongoing right now. Actually, right now is from December through March is like crazy time. I don't know if it's the same for designers, but for illustrators, it's like get everything in by print deadline.
Okay, you got to beat probably Chinese New Year.
That's
as
right.
Well.
Yeah. So it's like crazy. Like I'm just like Thanksgiving and Christmas are great, but also it's like the height of my season right now.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we're usually a little bit before that. I think is usually crunch for
We
us.
need to be done by the time it gets to you for the most part.
Yeah, because I don't want to be changing up stuff because you changed the rules last second. So
yeah, don't do that. That'd be bad. So today we're talking with Kwanchai about being an illustrator in tabletop land. We have a whole bunch of people who are interested in becoming illustrators and graphic designers and all of the like ancillary parts of the board game industry. And yet, one of the most front and center part of the board game industry in terms of covers and art and stuff like that. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get some questions from the audience. I see Jamie Jones and Helena Capel up there on the chat right now, and definitely other people popping in, which would be great to have some questions from them. But let's start off with questions from us to you, Kwanchai.
All right.
So I know a lot about your history and how you got into the business, but I'm sure everybody else in Meeple Syrup Land does not. So why don't you tell us about where you got your start? Did you have to go to art school? And how did you get really noticed in the industry to start being your road trip to becoming as prolific as you are today?
That's a good question. I liked board games before I became like a board game illustrator, I guess. And that was, I think, 2007 or 2008. I played Carcassonne, and I just went headlong into German style board games, as they're known. And I just scoured comic shops because there weren't any board game stores yet. And for Ticket to Ride and Settlers and stuff. And then I was doing a history degree. I finished my history degree. I was at university for a history major. I finished that degree. And then in the interim between finishing my bachelor's and trying to find a job as a teacher, I decided to give art a shot. And I went to art school. And a long story short, after getting a second bachelor's in illustration, I decided to try to get into board games. And it was a lot of happenstance and a lot of luck, I think. Most people know me from way back when, mostly for Catacombs. So Catacombs was my first big thing, and it was its 3rd edition. So being the illustrator on that and having sort of a new style, and also it already having a relatively large fan base on its own, meant a lot of good things for me as an illustrator coming in with that as my first, like, serving.
That's a good Canadian connection.
Yeah,
because they're from not my hometown, but my university town. So I grew
Hamilton?
up. I grew up playing games with a lot of the people who are now working with Elzra.
Mm-hmm.
And now actually the president lives like 20 minutes like that way from me now.
Oh,
so
really?
Pretty funny.
Great.
Yeah. They moved to St. Thomas from Dundas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this neat little story where it's like, how did this happen? And the coolest thing, actually, I think about the whole Catacomb story for you is that your art is a radical departure from what it used to be.
Yeah.
Right? It was like a complete 180 facelift.
Yeah. And that was like sort of my jive when I started illustrating for board games. I didn't have any jobs and I was just doing redesigns and putting them up on Board Game Geek. So really, Board Game Geek is one of the main reasons why I currently have a career. And because of all the fun things people were putting up. I mean, board games in general didn't have a high bar of like how they looked way back when. And Catacombs was a really cool idea for a dexterity game. Like no one had ever seen anything even close to that kind of idea besides like complete abstracts like Crokinole. So I was super excited to just throw some ideas on there and put it up on Board Game Geek. And that's how Aaron at Elzra saw that stuff and reached out to me through Geek Mail for information to see if I wanted to illustrate the new edition. And the game industry doesn't really work like that anymore, but really like it's not too far from that kind of like I've gotten.
It's not.
It's well, I mean, we just had Nolan on, and a big part of him getting noticed was Twitter. Like, he put out pieces all the time to show off exactly what he was doing, and got a following there too for it.
Right. I mean, DeviantArt, ArtStation, all those things. Like Tristan, if you know Tristan Rossin from who did a whole bunch of really cool art for things, he just puts this process stuff up, and people go, "Oh, I like the way that looks." And what was the first one of yours that I saw with the big green robot? It was a reskin.
Ogre.
Yeah. It was a reskin of Ogre.
Yeah. So I did like 4 or 5. I called them redesigns, and there was like 2 or 3 other redesigners on Board Game Geek who were just doing that, just like taking old games and putting a new skin on them. And I did Steve Jackson's Ogre, Melee, Wiz War, which is one of my favorite games, and some other stuff. Some like all of it was like trying to reach out and connect with other people who were doing just fun, really interesting things, whether it was designers or like Jeremiah, who did Zombie in My Pocket. I just geek mail and I was like, hey man, would you want to do something? Because I was just so excited about games in general.
That's fun.
It's almost like you kind of got to do like your fan art turned into your portfolio.
I mean, that's literally my career. Is I'm a huge board gamer, and then I also get to be a part of the industry, and it's still kind of like surreal.
So that dovetails nicely into our audience question. Helena was asking if you've played all of the games that you've worked on.
Almost all of them, at least once, and if not in the prototype. Usually the prototype, I'll print out the rules and whatever the accoutrement are for it. If I can't get sent an actual prototype, and just at least play it out on the kitchen table in my mind. But as for actual production copies, I try and get to all of them, but there's just it just feels like there's less and less time the more it goes on.
Yeah, the more art you create, the less time you're gonna have to play all those games, buddy.
And you're just a wee bit busy these days.
Yeah, luckily it's crazy. Yeah.
It's good. It's a good busy. What was the first? So I guess Catacombs was the first one that you had published.
The first thing I had published was called Twin Tin Bots by Flatline Games,
right?
A Belgian company.
Yeah.
And before that, I was just the first thing I ever did was.
Is that Eric? Can you see?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's right.
Yeah, and before that, I did small war game counters, 11 tiny game counters for a war game that one of the guys I was doing some like just redesign stuff with was like, hey, there's a company that needs like their artist dropped out and they just need to do like 10 more illustrations with little tiny soldiers. They're about like a quarter inch in diameter, and I just did it. It took me a long time, and I just knocked them out in tournament. It was my first actual thing that I did in board games. Yeah.
Wow. Like paid gig sort of thing.
First paid gig. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
10 tokens. It all started with 10 tokens, people.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be something grandiose like a cover. It could be 10 tokens. So tell me, were you always an artsy person? Like, or did art come to you after like university and into the illustration degree? Or was it like you've always been an artist?
I think I'm one of those always been an artist guys, for sure. You know, mom put up like little pastels of bananas and apples on the fridge, and when there was time or you know, in my schedule, she'd sign me up for classes because I had some knack for it.
Yeah.
So my parents always encouraged me, and I always liked art, but after I finished high school, I just didn't see a viable pathway for it. And I try to be logical about it. And I like history. I still like history. And I decided to do a history degree to go into like academics or teaching.
Right. Yeah. And that's gone where now?
Yeah. It informs my art.
Does it really?
Yeah. Actually,
it's a greater depth there. Okay.
Yeah.
Right in between the dragon fire and the
that's right, and the aliens.
And
aliens.
There's some history in there somewhere. Have you done a lot of research for the art that you do? Speaking of history, like the last piece that I saw, I think was some character art for a game that's like taking place Roaring 20s, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Roaring 20s, gangsters, mafia. I do a lot of research, even just for the reference material that's needed.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But one thing that history does really well for the history has done really well for me is just it teaches you how to do research and read a lot of primary sources. So that's all you do as in history degree. You just read primary sources and sometimes secondary sources, but it teaches you how to get a real grasp on a thing, to get multiple perspectives on it. So, I mean, I don't always do historical games. I've done maybe 2 or 3 where I need to actually do historical research, but it means a lot when even like the little details on the side of something are period appropriate or make sense within, like, sci-fi isn't just sci-fi. There's all kinds of ages of sci-fi. There's like golden age, there's modern, and you have to know what movies have come and, and books have done with it to make it seem authentic.
Right. So like Lux, for example, has that good retro sci-fi vibe to it, where it's almost like you feel Buck Rogers-y more than other, like a different style of sci-fi.
Exactly. And that was the goal. Yeah, that was a goal with that one. And I think good research is important. And you could see sometimes the youth on an artist when they might be an awesome illustrator, but like their research just isn't that in depth,
Interesting.
So I'm kind of curious on your choice too, because I looking at your covers, I feel like there's 2 categories of them. There's ones where you can say I can see a very strong style, and you're like, that is Kwanchai style, and I think you know what I mean, especially like a lot of the color splashing. But then you also have the ones where you've kind of deviated from that, or they're more individual. How much do you control that? Like, how much do you want to be like, I want people to be like, yeah, I know that's Kwanchai, or I want it more to be something that stands out for a different reason, let's say.
People say that they can tell a cover is my cover, but I have a very hard time picking out what I think is my particular style or approach. And maybe that's because with every cover, I'm really itching for something new, and that's not what a publisher always wants. They want to look at your catalog and be like, I want something like that with this new thing, right? But I'm always excited to like try new things. So some of the things that were like try new thing projects, like the Target version of the game that I did for Panasaurus, or maybe like Bosk was something I was trying to do something different. Those ones I think look a little bit outside, maybe is my take. But yeah, I don't know. I know how I think about a cover, but I never go in thinking like, how do I make this look like something I know? It's always like, what is the goal of the project and board games aesthetic, and how do I pull that into a composition that's striking?
I like that. Yeah, that's neat. So what kind of media do you normally focus on? I know a lot of your work is digital just because it's easier in some ways, but have you gone outside of the digital realm? Are you going to look to go outside the digital realm a little bit more? I know in one of the projects that we worked on together, that is somewhere, who knows where it is, I don't know, that you sort of wanted to do that different thing and try that quasi-mixed media feel, which I actually just posted an article about mixed media comic book covers today. So I thought about you when I was posting it. Said, "Oh, Kwanchai," because I have a lot of my comic art heroes are all the mixed media guys, like Dave McKean and Bill Sienkiewicz and David Mack and stuff like that. Like people who use like they actually sculpt stuff and then take photos of it and integrate that into a cover. And I think that was sort of your intention with simplicity, complexity when you did the textures and map them over the characters and stuff. So what else are you looking to do that's going to mix up the world of Kwanchai?
Or if they let you, like, what's the dream? What's the dream here?
They let me. Yeah, usually they let me when, let's say, like I have a quote that's a little too high, and they're like, "Well, we can't meet your quote," and then that's when I come in like, well, how about I try something completely different, and give me a little bit more creative control to try and risk a little bit. That's usually projects that's usually when I can slip that in. But I don't know. I think that I feel like digital paint is so limited. I mean, it's not limited because it's just the digital representation of whatever is being, photographed or taken. But like, I like to stray from that into the aesthetic of, I mean, I like playing board games because it's like tactile and you can feel the wood, and like, I'd always want wood over plastic or cardboard over some resin. Because it's more, you can feel it more. So I like to stray into things that are fun, like scanning textures in. I have this idea. I also do woodworking. I thought it would be cool to do an entire project where I build little wood toys and just photograph them really well as the art. Like maybe
I'm up for that.
Doing stuff. Yeah,
I'm there for that, man.
I really like textures, and even when it's not obvious, I'm scanning in textures and putting them into the art because there's something about it that grabs a viewer's attention, because so many artists nowadays just strictly do digital and honestly don't do it with the mind to have an aesthetic of being an analog product. So it looks very it looks so samey if you see a lot of it. As an artist, I consume a lot of other art as well.
Yeah, of course.
And it looks, when you can see when someone is just doing the digital stuff and not reaching and playing around. So I like it. And I have a lot of ideas. Most of them are probably bonkers, and I don't want to be like, that like some guy who's always trying to push the envelope, but it is the part that really keeps me interested in going.
Sure. I think that makes it fresh.
And you've also done some kids books too. So is there a chance that this could become an expression in that way, where you could actually intentionally use all these things you want to do, these wacky ideas? That's almost kind of the perfect outlet for it, if you think about it, because they'll let you do anything you want anyway, as long as it looks a certain way, right?
Yeah. Books are funny. They're a lot more. They're a lot more established. Turnarounds are like a year long for like 16 pages of art, 16 spreads. It's like compared to board games that like I got like in the last 2 weeks I gotten like 10 pitches for projects that they want in 2020. It's like, that's insane. And there's more room there. There's bigger budgets, I think, in general. And in that realm, I've done 4 or 5 kids books, and they're like scan textures specifically. And I mean, it's great that I got them. I didn't specifically think they'd be successful, but they have been. And that's one place where I get to do just like straight cutesy collage stuff, cut out picture stuff.
Have some fun with it, right? And maybe some of it can start to bleed over. So I actually have a question for you, because you do work on so many games, but you can also make other things. how much do you want to get involved in a game being made, or how much have you already been involved in any of the games that you've worked on?
I think selfishly, I want to be from the outside in a more general sense. I want to be on the coolest projects that are out in the season. So like if I'm on the floor at Gen Con, in my mind, I want to, what is the coolest thing that some of the coolest designers are trying, in new ways to do right now. And luckily I know a lot of people and made friends with so many people that oftentimes I have an eye onto one or two of those things. I like to play games, and so I would really like to play to illustrate a game that I played and I liked. That's not always the case, but that was the case, for example, with Gil's High Rise. I played it and I was like, oh, this is really good, and I like it. And I mean, we played specifically because he wanted me to illustrate, but yeah, I really like the process of making board games, and the earlier that I'm involved, the more interested and the more on time I am with art. So that's always helpful because it's such a lone, like out on the prairie kind of a job. You're just like working the soil and doing the stuff, and you don't see anybody unless it's a convention. So when I can work on things that I feel like I'm a part of a team, that makes it all the more compelling.
Cool.
Have any of the projects you worked on, have designers ever done something that you thought, wow, that really made my job easier? And conversely, is there anything that designers have done that you've thought, man, I wish you didn't do that because now illustration is going to be a real challenge?
I love it when the rules are completely wrapped when I start sketching. And surprisingly, that's almost never the case, right?
None of us are surprised.
I mean, there's dev, there's Kickstarters, and if there's a Kickstarter, then that means that there might be some feedback on stuff. I mean, I get why there's reasons why, but in general, no, I don't feel like I've ever thought like that there's something that I wish a designer had or hadn't done. There is a tension as an illustrator because there's a thing that makes a game really good that comes just from playing the game, and you don't know it until the art's on it and it's all in a box and it's all, it's all ready to go when you sit down and play the actual production version of a game. And my art plays a big part of that experience, right? The theme and conveying the idea of it. And it's scary because the designer is passing along a kernel to you that you have to treat with as much respect as they've bumped into that thing, right? And then hopefully hand it off better. But so that's an interesting tension and challenge that that is it kind of drives you, but it also kind of scares you. You don't want to mess it up. You really don't want to mess it up.
Are you worried when you hand in art? Do you get
always,
like butterflies?
Always worried. Yeah, always.
Really?
Always worried.
You're Kwanchai.
That doesn't matter at all. Like I can mess up.
I told you you're the only one who doesn't have this sensation. The rest of us are always scared.
Apparently, I'm a robot.
The death of everything I could
mess up at any time, and it's not going to happen. But like my career could evaporate in a weekend for enough reasons that there's an avalanche effect. I could who knows. And so I feel like everything I do has to be at least a little bit better than the last thing, and I can't just hit par. I really feel like
I get that.
Be interesting.
That I understand. Speaking of which, I'm just going to post this. Shem Phillips, who, by the way, okay, write Shem's name down because he's here all the time anyways, so we might as well get him on the show for
Shem, we're tired of you being in the comments.
Hey Shem, want to be on the show?
So he said that Capital Lux was the first game he saw with your art, Kwanchai. Straight away, he was captivated by it. He picked up Overlight purely for the art, too, and he thinks it's an awesome original style. And that's from the guy who works with the Miko almost exclusively, right? Who is another. Excuse me, you've infected me, Kwanchai. Person who is artist who is has a distinct style that is really prolific as well. Used in several different genres, but very, very much associated with Garpil and Renegade. And it's funny that Shem mentions the Overlight project, and I think that's one that interests me as well in terms of just chatting about, because that was one where, because just for the premise of the game, it has to do with light, right? And I thought your art for the game conveyed that sense really well, because I don't know what you did with your brush strokes or what you were doing with your translucencies, but it felt like light.
Sure. It's very kind.
Do you know what I mean, though?
I wasn't thinking of those things, but art is about good painting is about light, right? Light and dark, actually. It's not really about color. And if you nail the light and dark, the color is almost secondary.
Interesting.
So,
well, I guess that makes sense, because I'm very heavily into the Kurosawa style of comic books. So like Magnolia and Toth and stuff like that, where it's just literally ink and space.
Yeah. But yeah, Overlight was the idea is that, this all-encompassing overlight is fractured into different spectrums, and then different folks inside this RPG world can use that to do magical things and have adventures. And that was a cool project, because the idea behind that was like, someone was like, Scott and Paul and all those guys were like, we want to take the things that you've done with your personal paintings that I had not really done with anything with, except for Capital Lux at that point. And they basically wanted me to run with it. And so that was exciting, because it was really like, how much analog acrylic oil paintings can you do in an 8-month period and just go? Just go. Run.
Really a lot. I have a whole book of them over there.
It was 88 unique pieces, and they were all painted, and it was
that's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was good. It was also a good way to know, like, here's the line where I fail. Here's the line where my ligaments begin to fail me.
Yeah.
And like limbs start falling off because it's just too much. So that's a good thing to know, as an artist.
Yeah. You figure out your burning out point, and you won't try to avoid it from now on.
That's right. Yeah.
You're also getting some grief here that Kwanchai was in town and didn't visit.
Okay, is that Stephanie? Is that Stephanie? Yeah. I texted her because I was like, hey, where are some good places to eat? Because I was only there for like basically 2 days. And Stephanie, I was also sick, so I didn't want to infect you and your dogs and Gordon. So anyway, there's a reason, but I'm sorry.
He's being nice.
He's being kind to your health.
Let's continue with the burnout idea, because you must get approached like crazy right now. So honestly, how do you schedule and pick? Like, I know you said you're trying to look for the next thing, but that can't always be an option. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how are you doing? How are you balancing all this?
Yeah. So that's an interesting question, because like so much of my career up to this point, and it's been a short one, to be honest. It's like really in the last 2 years, it's gotten super serious to the point where I'm not considering to work at Starbucks anymore, for like extra cash. And that's crazy. Like I'm hanging out at Starbucks with my wife, and maybe just 3 years ago, I was like, maybe I should work here because it's not making enough money.
I should get a job application while I'm drinking this.
I mean, literally, I was like, I wonder if they take job applications, because it's so close to the house. I could still freelance, But yeah, anyway, so much of my career has been about jumping on opportunities, big, small, doesn't matter. Say yes and have a big smile and shake a hand. And I literally can't do that anymore because of a certain amount of success and having a much better portfolio to show. So what does that mean for me? Like, how do I say no, and how do I pick the right projects when my habit, or what's taught me to succeed, is like say yes a lot, right?
That's also DC's thing, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Her big thing is say yes, and good things will happen. Yeah,
because you want to say yes, because who knows what door leads to where, and so many of those doors in the past have led to awesome projects that, like, in the next year, I'm on some things that I'd never even thought I could do. Working on projects and IPs that are just super exciting. So now I've like calcified a little bit, and I'm like to the point where I just want to work with people I've worked with, and maybe find some new people, just because there's a fear of working with on a project that falls apart because of, God knows so many reasons, right?
Yeah.
So you want to work with people that have a record with you. At the same time, you don't want to say no to possibly awesome projects. So I think my solution to that is going to conventions and being plugged into what's going on, because that really gives you a sense of what's cool and what's going on. And all the designers talk. It's not a big world. And you can really get a sense of what might be a really exciting project and what might be kind of like a whatever project, not to put down anyone's, hopes and dreams, but as an artist, the success of each game is also my business card for the next game,
Right. And how many artists do you think, or not artists, but people, want to use your art because they know your art is eye-catching and they know your art will get some looks and views, versus how much you're interested in actually doing the project, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much are they paying? There's a lot of balancing points there, I think.
Yeah, there is.
And I mean, do you keep like one slot open for that hopeful, possibly awesome? By the way, I like the word possibly awesome. I think possiblyawesome.com should be a thing.
Possibly awesome.
Or if I make a superhero, it'd be possibly awesome possum.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my new superhero animal.
Awesome. Yeah, I keep flexing my schedule. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's not true. I don't really have flex in my schedule, but I say I do. And then I just bend, my body bends to match my my appetite for new exciting projects. It's funny because I really like, for example, the Catacombs, the art was specifically like a certain very rough style, let's say, and it was dark, and it was like, the kind of thing you'd see on an older, old school RPG, for example.
Yeah.
So coming in and doing a very bright, colorful, cartoony, family-friendly art style on it was like, ooh, it's coming from the left side, oh, what's this guy doing? And so the bar is like not that high in terms of like, the expectations are completely different, right? So a lot of my choices in games and doing stuff, doing art for games, has been like, coming from the other side, what's he doing,
Yeah.
But I can't really play that card anymore. Like now people are like, oh, you're really good, right? That's the come in the meeting.
That's your thing, right?
Really good, right? But when I've come
really
up,
good stuff for us.
Yeah, but like the way I came up was like, oh, what's he doing? Oh, he's good, So I can't play the underdog card, and so I have to really, like, I've spent the last 5 years doing board games, but also like I've gotten a lot better as an artist just because I'm playing catch up on everything, like just anatomy and perspective and trying to do things and not hold on to handicaps or crutches in terms of art. So I don't know.
Well, that's good though.
5 years of practice straight, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, luckily publishers are kind enough to keep hiring me in the process. So.
Yeah, they pay you to practice. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, baby.
So do you think you've got better?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
I think your realism is constantly heightening, like, all the time.
Yes, exactly. That's the main thing. I every artist gets scared of like faces and hands and like poses and like composition is the thing I know I've been able to sort of understand since the beginning, but everything else, almost everything else, I've improved a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. The one thing I'm not good at is like continuity, so I can't draw the same thing from different angles again and again and again. I could draw, I just can't do that. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
What do you think about? Excuse me. About things like, Fiverr and like, are people using that for illustration? Should they use that for illustration? Is that a bad thing? Does it undercut the value? I know it's more for like more people think about it for graphic design, but I'm sure you could find an illustrator on there as well.
Yeah, sure you can. Yeah. And I think that it's so hard to recommend anything that I've done as a path because it's so disjointed and fractured, and I didn't know that they all connect. And looking back, all those points connect, but I mean, they could have easily not connected, So
you could be a barista, is what
I
you're
could
saying.
Easily be a barista and just be totally happy, doing small gigs here and there and just doing art on the side or whatever. And so it's hard to recommend to people. I think things like Fiverr and even Craigslist or whatever, like those are all viable ways to try and strive to be an artist. But I have like like a dozen emails in my inbox right now of artists who are in that position. Like, what do I do? I've had this. I have a gallery show. I've had some success doing a published product, maybe one or two things, but it's like a lull, you know.
And do you give them advice? Are you like free advice from Kwanchai?
I do, and
that's very nice.
I just, because people did that for me when I was getting started, and I feel like I'm on the ladder too, but I also came up a little bit, so I can say a few things. And one of the things I tell people is that it's really important to not try and like desk jockey your way into a art career.
What does that mean?
Like sit on a computer and click your way, like click on links and send emails as a way to attain a career. I think you really need to like pound pavement and shake hands to get anywhere in the art industry. And even though like the internet means that a bazillion illustrators are available at the click of a button, I feel like even it has the opposite effect in that a lot of publishers don't want to just take random internet anything. They'd rather almost always work with someone who they've at least met in person.
I mean, I think so too, just from the designer side, right?
Yeah, I mean,
that's super true of, I think, the board game industry. I'm sure lots of other industries are similar to this, but people want to meet face to face. It really is super valuable. I know it's such a huge barrier for so many people, but it is super valuable to get in their face and actually say, this is me, you know, introduce yourself, get time with them, and repeated time, which is the hard part too. The more someone sees you, the more that familiar they become. It really does change their opinion on how quickly they want to work with you. It is a big factor to a lot of people.
Yeah, because I mean, what I've learned now is it's that reason that's such a big factor is because they're worried about who their coworker, which would be me if I'm the illustrator, who that coworker is going to be for the next 3 or 4 months on this project and possibly more projects. So they want to meet the guy. And I feel like so many artists hit a wall trying to computer internet their way into a career when all that energy is much better spent, one, really honing the craft that you are trying to do. If it's painting, then be a better painter and really push all the avenues of success of just being like composition, hue, paint, light and dark, like just getting that all really squared away. And secondly, going to, in board games, that's conventions. But for any industry, there is a place where people are meeting, where warm bodies are congregating to talk about and do business, and they're not hard to find. It's usually the form of a convention or a trade show, but I feel like that's a really valuable place to go, even if it's not conventionally a place where an artist is supposed to go. Like as an artist, I'm not supposed to go to Gen Con, I don't think, and no one told me that, but I just found it really valuable. Besides the fact that
no one kicked you out either.
Okay, well, I'm just excited to be there because like half the time I'm just like super excited to get a game before, like 1 month before someone else
might play a game anyway. So I'm happy to be here, but I can also show off my portfolio to people. Then it's like a win-win-win situation.
Exactly. Like I brought me and my now wife, my then girlfriend. We went to Essen like in 2014 or something, and I didn't know anybody. I knew like one person for like really well, and that was Patrick Nickel, who used to run Crash. And I remember when I saw him when I was buying my ticket for at the booth in the front of the Messe, I saw him and I almost had tears in my eyes because it was like so overwhelming to be in a whole different country and like roll all the dice on literally no connections, right? My only goal there was to walk around with this stupid portfolio that had mostly student work and then what's the goal? I don't even know what the metrics are, right?
Yeah.
And I saw Patrick and he gave me a hug and he was like, "Hey, good to see you. I'm going to meet with some people later." And I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, like whatever, tell me where to go." And I mean, since then I've met a lot more people, but I think that amount of risk and fear you need to approach if you're trying to be an illustrator nowadays.
You gotta jump.
Yeah, you gotta jump.
You gotta put your work out there and yourself out there.
Yeah, you gotta have a place where people can easily find you with your actual name, not like some weird handle. Okay, I don't want to bag on people that have weird handles. I know I'm like maybe an old school, have an old school feeling on this, but I feel like you should just have your actual name first and last on your stuff because sometimes it's very hard to find. Say again.
right? TT Void and Frenemy Games over there.
I just on Twitter.
I wasn't trying, but as an artist, I feel like a lot of artists have cool artist names, and it's sort of like a younger generation thing to have a cool handle, you know. But if you want to go into publishing, it's a lot easier for someone to find you as an artist. If you just boom, have your name there on everything, Facebook, website, everything. I have all
even
these.
Even if your name is a weird handle like Kwanchai Moriya.
Yeah, that's even better actually. If it's a weird name, even better. They're like,
searchable.
Eminently change it. Practice before I meet him.
I think the advice here is you should change your name to a weird handle.
To Kwanchai
specifically. So Jesse Wright will now be hereby known as the symbol TT Void. There you go.
The symbol formerly known as TT Void.
I have like a bunch of people that, like I said, in my inbox who are like asking for some advice about being an artist, and some of them have had successes, but sometimes I can't even find their website because they don't have their name anywhere.
Huh.
So
interesting. Tell them to watch this video. This might help them. We have a question here from the one, the only Helena Capel, who asks, I know you never want to do the typical guy looking over a kingdom. If you could redesign any box art, which game would you want to redesign, Kwanchai?
Okay. I have a couple. One recently got a redesign, so that's probably out of luck there. But Suburbia, which is one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
Which I just got in the mail when I came back from Seattle, the giant collector's edition box.
Right, the big box.
It looks great. Like the art is great. It looks like a top-down little video game, you know. Perfect. It's what it needed. But yeah, Suburbia was one I was always like, I would love to do Suburbia. Wiz War is a game that, I mean, partially because it's part of my history of getting into board games. I really like the zany, weird 80s like wizards just casting.
Oh, like the old school one was really much different than the Fantasy Flight version.
Right. Yeah, which is the version I love. And I have like every old, you know, yellowed edition of that old game.
Yeah.
So that would be cool to do. Blood Bowl Team Manager is one of my favorite games, and that game is probably not going to exist anymore because of the split up between the companies. But if like any kind of Warhammer Fantasy, the old Warhammer Fantasy stuff, I would love to do like, I don't know, some kind of product with
Is it just because you want to do something a little more darker and gritty than you normally do?
It's both. It's both like old Warhammer is like that mix of like dark and gritty and just plain dumb and stupid. So and I just love like goblins and mushrooms and like trolls. So like that's
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Go fantasy. Okay,
that's very cool. So actually, speaking of staff, I would absolutely love to see, you know, you and Gordon do something. Have you seen Gordon's like sketch work?
Yes. I mean, he's worked for like studios. So so like
it's
he's
ridiculous.
a legit artist. Yeah.
Like, I don't know why he's not doing. I mean, I do know why he's not doing more because he does it all the time. But some of his stuff is just like mind blowingly. Like that would be such a cool world to have a game. And he's like, yeah, I know, but he's just a really good artist. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, so many of the people that I went to art school with, and I went to Art Center College of Design here in Pasadena, like almost, I know maybe one other person who's kind of freelancing as a full-time career, but everyone else went into the entertainment studio business. So,
right.
You know,
consistency, right? That's what you want.
So there's a fear, there's a constant fear, and it was more prevalent when I started working. There's a constant fear that like everyone's better than me because I couldn't get the jobs that all my compatriots who were doing really well and are good artists, they got those jobs and I didn't.
Did you apply for those jobs though?
I did. Yeah. I applied for those, and then there was a long staircase down of like lower end jobs until I finally landed. I remember the last job that I applied to that I randomly popped up in my inbox in a search for something else. And it was a job to digitize and categorize Yul Brynner's estate in Hollywood.
What?
Yeah. And oh
my gosh.
Yeah. And
that is completely random.
Completely random. And it was like through my art school's the college's website, like their job board. And I went to an interview with like, I think his daughter or granddaughter or something. And I remember sitting there in that chair and thinking like, this is the stupidest job that I could possibly do with the skill set that I've tried to attain. And also the words coming out of my mouth are like, I'm so excited, can start as soon as you're ready. And I'm very excited to work with the golden age of Hollywood. I practiced the line. I was like, I'm so excited to work with photographs from the golden age of Hollywood. So I don't know.
Like, did you tell him you were a big fan of The King and I because you're part Thai, or that's just
actually, if you're Thai, The King and I is like no go. My mom is like, you're not allowed to watch.
I know
The King and I. It's again because he's not Thai, and it's like it's like portraying the king in a way that's like I never watched the movie.
You really should.
I know what it is, but it was like banned from the house.
That's what I thought. This was like the most random thing ever that you would do that.
It is so random.
Would just make me laugh. Horrible. So you didn't get the job, is what you're telling me. I applied
for those jobs and I didn't get those jobs. I didn't even get the free internships. You know, so like, and I think partially it's because I chose the wrong direction in my major. I chose a more fine art illustration career that was a lot more. It was just not at all a track that would equip me for anything relevant in a publishing world.
Commercial.
And so like those guys got those jobs for a good reason because they were good and they applied themselves in that track.
And so what tracks did they take?
I mean, there's one specifically called entertainment arts. And
well then, do that.
Right? Literally, you're doing stuff that you'll literally like turnarounds and you know, all that stuff for working in the studio.
Right. And so you did more of a fine art track?
Yeah, and I didn't know that applying, you know, but there's quite a few really good art schools where their illustration program, which should be one that's more publisher centric. I mean, publishing, I don't know, specific. It's equipping their illustrators to basically be like print magazine illustrators, like op-ed stuff, covers of books.
Really I mean, doesn't exist in the same way.
It's a profession, but really. Good luck. Like you're
fighting for like 3 spots in the world, right? Yeah. Did you do that as well? Did you go to like New York?
I did. Yeah. Yes. So one of the things they tell you is to send out mailers, hundreds of mailers. You buy this like very expensive. It's hundreds of dollars for the subscription that gives you. I don't know how they get it, but you get the email and address of every art director in the country or all around the ones.
Right.
And what we did is like in art school, we like 3 of us went in on one and just split the subscription cost and then sent out mailers. And then I went to New York with a friend and basically try to cold call all these like Avenue of the Americas, which has all these publishing companies, Collins and all that stuff. And I was there for like 2 weeks and I got one sit down with a guy and they offered me a free internship in the summer that wasn't related. And that was as far as I got with print stuff. I mean, some other friends had more success, but it's really not like as an illustrator now, you have to really be a jack of all trades. And you better be ready to I don't do this, but probably do some like self-publishing stuff through Patreon or Instagram or Etsy or something.
You kind of not bridge that gap, but like got in before that was a thing anyways, right?
I did. Like I look at it and all those people, I feel like, wow, you're young, but I'm not old, but it just feels like I missed
career wise. Yeah.
Doing the con circuit and doing stuff like that's awesome. And people really they can make a living for themselves, but I'm just doing strictly illustrative published work. But I feel like nowadays you have to do a little bit of everything, or at least
because you don't have like a table at a con selling prints and stuff.
No,
like Nolan's still I don't know if he does it as much anymore, but he as of at least 6 months ago, he was still selling like his mouse pads and things like that. That was a big deal, and actually I think it allowed him to like do the games because he could sell his work, the art on mouse pads. It was really just mouse pads.
It's cool that people can do that. That's scary. I feel like I always say like they're like, oh, are you going to Gen Con or are you going to this con? And then there's usually crossover with artists who are there for the artist areas, the artist alleys or whatever you want to call them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be there. But like, I never have a table. I'm just walking around, like hanging out with you guys. Like, are you guys hungry? You want to get some food?
We're going to go get some food.
I go this way. Yeah.
It's true. So you mentioned a term, art director. How do you feel about working for other art directors? Do you want to do a lot more art direction? Have you done any art direction with other artists?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you're interested in becoming more known as an art director?
Sure. Yeah, let's go with yes.
He's like, if someone wants to hire me, I'll give it a go.
I feel like I think I'm a little naive, and like I've hit so many goals in the last 2 years that I just don't know where to put the new goal.
Yeah, why not have another one?
Yeah, like yeah, sure. No, I would. I feel like I'm better at the talking than I am at the drawing, to be honest. And so not just talking, but like conveying ideas and organizing. I used to work a lot. Anyway, I had a history degree, and I was going to teaching for a reason. It's because I thought I had something to offer in that realm,
Sure.
in terms of just working with people and conveying ideas. So art direction sounds fun. Also, teaching sounds fun as an artist. I don't know where that might go right now. Freelance is all I'm doing. I do work with a lot of art directors. I mean, it's always a different kind of a title at a company. It might be like project manager. They might not have any art experience. They might have a lot of art experience. But they are like the point man or woman for all the ideas going back and forth between the publisher and me. So that person's really important. Yeah. I don't really have a problem working with anyone as long as they're as communicative as I am, and willing to just throw back and forth on things. What's hard is when I feel like I'm working with a project manager who has no say in anything and just is taking things constantly back to committee and coming back with a different answer. That's hard, not because I don't want to hear it, but because it just eats up time. And I don't care. I can change anything you want under the sun, but I don't have, several months to do it.
You want it to be definitive.
Yeah.
Not have to go back and get okayed by a panel of judges.
And there's always going to be a panel. Like the bigger the company, the more I know that everything's going to be changed constantly. And that's my wife was like, just asked me yesterday. She's like, "Oh, that sucks. They made you change that thing again." And I was like, I remember like a couple years ago, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, they did. Publishers, But honestly, like it's, I don't know why, but it's like fine now. I don't mind at all. And
it's just part of the job.
It's just part of the flow. And I feel like that's something I've learned because I've only done print, published work and not done personal stuff where I really have more of a more of a
Yeah, we have free creative freedom, right?
Yeah, which is what all those Artist Alley guys do. They really pour their souls into it. So when you change it, it's like, uh-oh, watch out. You're going to get someone angry.
Right. Speaking of revisions, what's your policy on revisions, like kind of on average? Do you give a lot? Do you give a little? Are you willing to go outside those lines? How do you, because that's really, in my opinion, like the time eater, right? It's like, I do the piece, I get it done, and then you ask for a revision. Good, I'll do that revision. And then when you ask for another one, it's like, I didn't budget that time.
Yeah, honestly, I've only had problems once with revisions ever. And I've done like 90 board games projects, and only one of them has ever been like, oh my god, I want to tear my hair out, and I know every publisher is thinking that good right now. If anyone that might be listening is thinking, oh my god,
we're like, we want to know, but we don't want to get you in trouble.
I guarantee you it's not you. It's like this company didn't even speak English, so that was part of the problem. Anyway, usually my policy is 2 sets of revisions for every stage. So there's a rough stage, there's a revised sketch stage, and there's a final art stage. And usually in my contracts, it's 2 sets of revisions at each stage. Outside of that, we're billing for a whole new set of a whole new set of unique assets.
Yeah.
I've never had to reinforce that. And I think part of the reason I never had to is because I've often stressed at the outset how little time there is for me. Not to threaten them, just to threaten the project in general. Because if you want to get it out, you better get your stuff, get your revisions and your notes right, and I'll do it. But I like, there's not enough time for anyone to mess these up.
Yeah, you can't. You like when you give me notes, they better be solid notes so that you can do the work, right?
Yeah,
that makes sense to me.
I've gotten a lot better with just like taking notes and just rolling with it. I remember I used to be so up about it, but like, yeah, I as long as notes are like on time and legible, like anything's fine. I'm so like, I don't know. I'm saying that I already stated that, but it surprises me that I've become flexible in that way.
You've become comfortable. It's when things become familiar. You're not afraid of them anymore.
That's also being a professional, right?
Sure.
I mean, like coming into your career as saying, "This is my career. This is what I do. I guess this is part of it." And a little bit about being a professional is having that professional detachment, saying that, yeah, it's my art, but it's their product.
Yeah.
Right. And they get what they want.
There's so many times when the notes were like made my art better. Like almost every project, I think someone's notes for someone that probably isn't even an artist really, just made the work better. And
they have an eye, right?
Yeah. I mean, their main concern is how do I sell more of my product and stand out on the shelf? So that's what they're looking for.
Yeah,
you don't care about my journey and what each company needs for the next thing. You know, it's like, so in a way they're really, their eyes are on the main prize for this particular project.
Yeah, there's I have a friend. Well, you probably know Matt and Nate. So Nate from XIDW, he does art buying, but he doesn't do art direction. It's a really small little niche of what he does. Yeah. It's really interesting because he has a really good eye for art, but then he needs an art director to kind of put all of the pieces that he buys together into a product. Yeah. And so it's just this little sub thing that he's good at. It's very funny. Adam Young has a question. He asks, is there anything you haven't done art for yet that you fantasize about doing?
Fantasize?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I want to do like a prehistoric mammals game.
Cool.
Actually, stuff that's historical and also scientific sort of like leaning.
Yeah,
is really interesting. Like that, I want to do something like that. I also want to do something that's like cell biology stuff with like, you know.
Cool.
Like rhizomes and rhizomes.
Did I never tell you that complexity was?
I didn't know that. I didn't know
was cells and stuff. That's funny.
Like I just want to. I don't know why. Like in my sketchbook, I just draw little cell bodies moving around. You know, like just for fun.
You wanted to be a diagrammer when you grow up.
I think
or part like of a medical illustrator, apparently.
Well, I think part of that is that I'm an artist and I want to probably sound smarter than I am and want to draw some science stuff. You know,
all right. Make all the science games.
But I have a long list of like IPs and ideas. It's like right now it's at 29, and it's like right under the current list of projects I have on my desktop, just because they are things that excite me. That if anything even comes close, or there's a game that gets pitched to me that sounds like a good fit, that I'll pitch that as a possible theme because I'm excited about it.
And what is that?
Can we hear them?
Some of the, there's a lot of,
I see you looking at a board, so I want to know what's on the board.
Cell structure chart / illustrated fun. That's number 5.
What is that?
That's the one I told you. The cell biology.
Oh, cell structure. Yeah. Sorry.
Fallout is one that I'm a huge Fallout fan.
Yeah, I know.
We talked about that.
We did.
Baseball players, but specifically some of the female baseball leagues in the U.S. like during that historical.
Oh, period. Seriously, that's awesome.
Yeah, like I did a painting a long time ago. It's up on my wall here because I just like that. You know, I really like that part of history, and and how. Anyway, yeah, that's one of them. Deep sea animals, crustaceans is number 15. 18 is a villains card game that's like done a million times already, but like the idea of everyone playing villains and trying to hurt like normal folk, not hurt, but you know, win.
Win.
Gosh, yeah, lots and lots of a lot of weird ones that I'm not gonna really. They're too specific. Number 24 is anything with the word primordial or ooze, or ideally both. Period.
You know, there's a game called Primordial Ooze, right?
Yeah, which I was one of the first games that I was like, I want to find that game, and I couldn't find it anywhere like in Northern California where I lived at the time. And so I like made my own version. Someone had scanned a board, I printed it out, I cut out of wood like little ooze things to fit the little spots where you put.
Oh wow! It's one of the first. That was one of the first Euro games I ever played. It was it's Usurpe in German, so that's one of the first ones I ever played. It's funny. Yeah. Primordial ooze. All right, out there, designers. If you want Kwanchai on a project,
use one of those two words.
Use one of those two words.
In conjunction, you've got a higher chance.
Yeah,
higher chance. I mean, it sounds stupid, but like any of those things, I perk up. Oh wait, maybe I do have time.
Right. So what about hopping vampires? If I said the word hopping vampires to you, what would you say to me?
That's an odd one. I know we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, so whenever
you will find something about it at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe go for oozing primordials.
Oh, primordial
vampires.
There we go. Cool.
Cool.
I think we're getting close to the.
We are getting close to the time. So, Kwanchai, at this time of the day, we usually ask our special guest, who is you this time, to come up with one piece of advice that you would give to burgeoning artists trying to break into the industry. Other than all the stuff that you've already said, which is awesome, what is one more piece of quintessential Kwanchai advice that you would give to a new illustrator?
That was a good tongue twister in there. Can I just say that? The quintessential Kwanchai?
Yeah.
Say that
that's like possibly awesome possum.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give it's a two-parter, and it's only a two-parter because it's painted on my desk here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was really frustrated, like, I don't know, 6 years ago. Nothing was coming in. I think at that point I had Catacombs, but that was literally my only project for the whole year.
Wow.
So
this is post Yul Brynner.
Post Yul Brynner. This is after, yeah. I mean, pretty much. I talked about this in some interviews before, but like, I basically like gave up. I was like, you know what? All this investment by myself, by me, and also all the things I asked of my parents, like financially and mentally, to support me living like in LA and trying to do stuff. It was like I basically gave up. And was just doing whatever I could to just make some cash. And I remember I'd sold a painting that I really didn't want to sell. It was at a show, and someone asked for like, you have any other work? And like, I had this one painting on my wall, and I sold it because I needed like $200 more,
Yeah.
And that was like, I wasn't sad, to be honest, but looking back, it's like, oh, that was sad. But at the time I was like, yeah, I just did what I had to do. It didn't matter. But I painted on my desk something maybe I read somewhere, but it was it's kind of scratched out now. I can't see it. It's under my laptop, but it says make work that you love. And the other thing that I wrote on my desk was do the work. I think those two things are really important. I think it's important to make stuff that you love. Like, you should look at it and it should really give you chills, like that you could do that. And if that's not what's going on, then you're in the wrong business. Like it's way too much risk to try and get into this thing if it's not something that gives you the chills every once in a while. Because like there's way easier paths if you just want to have some success, right?
Yeah.
And secondly, it was in Mad Men. Don Draper gets like really drunk, and
so every episode.
Right. And he's like messing up his stuff. But anyway, one of the characters comes in, he's like, Don, do the work. And I thought that was really, at the time I was watching Mad Men for like, I don't know, the third time. I love the show, but do the work is really important. And the work for an artist is the art. There's a lot of other things you can apply, like business stuff, writing good emails, going to cons. But like, if your work isn't good, you're out of luck, So, yeah.
No, that's great. That's really good advice. And see, guys, this is why I like Kwanchai, having him on and stuff like that. I like you anyway, just as a person. But I always find that when we talk, we have these kind of these conversations that eventually devolve into some very deep stuff in terms of what does art really mean, and how what does this like do the work actually mean. And it's funny because I give the same advice to game designers who get caught up in things like illustration and graphic design. It's like, hey, your illustration looks good and your graphic design's on point, but does your game actually play like, right? And they think they're doing the work, and they've really kind of just obfuscated the work for themselves. It's just like you're saying, like if you're doing email and cold calls and whatnot, I mean, you're doing some part of the work, but have you produced a piece of art lately?
It's so easy to not do the actual art.
Yeah.
Like I could spend all day just answering emails, and that's ridiculous if I'm calling myself an illustrator. So
right. And that's what I think about game designers who spend all their time on like layout. It's super important. I get it, but make the actual game at some point, right?
After.
Yeah.
Step 2, 3, 6, 7.
Yeah, I don't know what step it would be, but it's definitely not step number 1. And I've had good friends who would just show me their art day after day of, this is the new layout for my cards, and this is, the new illustration that I'm going to use. It's like, okay, but your game's still the same that it was the last time we played, and it wasn't great. So how does this change it? So yeah,
it's prettier.
Yeah, I mean that's good. So yeah, Kwanchai, where are we going to see you next, sir?
Probably Origins would be the earliest thing.
Okay, so you won't be at PAX. I won't be at PAX. I don't think anybody here will be at PAX.
I was gonna go, and then I was like, no, this is like way too busy a time. I just
It's unfortunate. It's like in the last week of classes for me, so it's not great.
Otherwise, Gen Con, I guess.
Yeah. We'll always have Gen Con.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So thanks so much, Kwanchai, for coming on. We're gonna reach out about Chinese hopping vampires at some point.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And everybody else, it was great to see you all. Sham, Jamie, Stephanie, Adam, Helena. So nice you guys could come join us, and everybody else out there in Meeple Syrup Land. It's good to have you here with us. And next week is a community episode, and so we'll be dealing with community things. Yeah. Jesse is going to put together a Google Doc, a Google form, and we'll put it on the Shop Talk page, right, Jess?
Yep, and then you'll be able to ask us questions or throw topics our way.
Yeah, we'll have like a mailbag.
And we'll just draw things out of that survey thing until we run out of time or run out of questions.
Yeah. Also, the community stuff that Jesse's doing through the boot camp is still running. So get on there, make your MVP, iterate. That's all good. You can reach me at Senfeng Lim on Twitter. Erica is at Frenemy Games with an I, Frenemy, like friend, game, but not the D. And Jesse is at TT Void. You see Kwanchai's Twitter handle down there, so that's where you can reach us. Shop Talk is always where we're going to be. And if you haven't yet gone to our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/meeplesyrup, please do check it out and see what's available for you as some perks. There's a lot of other interviews and actually a video that should be coming out hopefully soon. And that actually has Kwanchai in it. And he talks about his part in doing the art for In the Hollow of the Mountain King.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other ones, Kwanchai, that you don't know about that. I have audio and video.
He takes hidden videos of you, Kwanchai, when you're not looking.
When you're not looking, I just take video. What else is that? Oh, yeah, and Roll to Play Network are hosts for this podcast, and they are wonderful people. So go check rolltoplaynetwork.com out as well, where there are a lot of other podcasts if you're into role-playing games, actual plays, that kind of stuff. Oh, hey, Kwanchai. Quick question. What was that really cool kind of like rock and roll looking black and white role-playing supplement that you had? You posted a picture of it. I'm looking for it.
Black Hack.
Black Hack. Okay.
Yeah, Black Hack 2nd edition. I think there's like 2 websites that sell it. You can get it online as a PDF, but I like actual books.
Yeah, I like books too.
I think you have to order from the UK, but
okay.
Black Hack.
And is it like a 5th edition, or like is it a D&D thing, or is
it's a fantasy role playing game in the tradition of OSRs, old school revival RPGs, but it's super streamlined. So like everything is stripped back, and the rules are really like I could play with my nieces if I wanted to. Well, but like they're but it also has enough crunch for me to like run a game on the fly. Because I just don't have the time to like world build in the way I used to. So it's a really good system. Why are we talking about Black Hack?
Oh, just we should be saying goodbye. It's just Sen decided to continue a conversation.
Yeah.
All right, Sen. Black Hack.
Black Hack. All right, everyone. We'll see you later.
All right.
Good night.
Bye.
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 Thanks so much for listening to the Meeple Syrup Show. If you'd like to support us on all of our projects, please check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/MeepleSyrup. Hope to see you next week.